Welcome to our viewers. I am Stacy Sallier, property management strategist. Welcome to my show. This is one of my last webinars of the year, and I have one of my besties on with me today. We're going to talk about a few different ways that you can grow your property management business. I would love to introduce Jonathan Cook for anybody who does not know him. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello. Thank you so much, Stacy. I have a lot of friends that would say, who doesn't know Jonathan Cook? But there's plenty of people out there that don't know me. I am the community manager for APM Help and the brand ambassador for Fyxed, and generally speaking, an all-around homer for the property management industry. I love this stuff. I've been doing this since I was a very young man. It was my first real job. It's kind of been my only real job, is doing stuff in property management. I love everything about the moving parts that exist in this industry, and it's very fun to talk about. I've spent most of my career growing property management companies, but now with APM Help, since I'm the community manager, I look at myself as this very interesting support role, like that extra piece of foundation so that all of these other great property managers have all the right tools that they can then take and plug into their system and grow their companies. This is what I love to do, Stacy. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
I know. We've had some really awesome phone conversations. And so we're like, hey, we need to take this on the air because everybody needs to hear what we have to say. So that's pretty much how this came about. For anybody joining live, feel free to use the chat. Feel free to drop in questions. You can tell us where you're listening from. Today's going to be a fun conversation. We're going to talk about different ways to grow your property management company. Jonathan comes from, biz dev background. I come from, founder, builder, owner, buyer, and seller in property management as well. So let's kick it off. What do we have to say first?
Just as additional background, I think I was kind of joking earlier. Who doesn't know Jonathan Cook? I say that because every time I go to a conference with anybody that's never been with me in a conference is like, I don't think you can walk 30 feet. It's possible for Jonathan Cook to walk 30 feet and not talk to 45 people. That means I know a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of people know me. So for a little caveat to everybody here in the chat, I started in property management in 2007. I was a real estate agent. I became a real estate agent when I was in my early 20s. And there was this whole 2008 thing that happened and hit Birmingham, Alabama, which is where I'm from, hit us pretty hard, which made me, and this is not a unique story. This is so many people's story, so it might relate. But when the market crashed, I had no idea what I was going to be able to do to keep making an income. I met some investors and started building out a property management company. I didn't even know that's what it was called at the time. To me, it was, I had a client that told me, hey, are you capable of writing 100 offers to HUD this week? I was 22 and said, of course, yeah, I'll go write 100 offers this week. And then I had to hand deliver them to the HUD office, which was fun because it's not in Birmingham, it's in Anniston. It's a 2-hour drive from me, but they wouldn't accept the signatures. So I couldn't fax them, I couldn't email them. I had to take ink on page, go to the HUD office. And that is the quick and dirty way of how I accidentally started managing properties. I used Excel at the time and 3x5 index cards. It was a really bad way to run a property management company. I did all of the things wrong. Yeah, but that eventually led me to doing it better.
Yeah. You were running the PMC, right? Like once the investors bought the properties, then you were running it.
I joined Brian Jenkins, both of our good friend, and helped him as his business development manager. I averaged it to a little over 350 units a year is what I was helping bring on organically through. We didn't have a CRM at the time, so it was just doing the things that I had learned to do. I would not have been able to replicate that without that team that I was with, which is one of the things that I think is interesting and where I wanted to dial this conversation into. There was a time that I was a one-man show and everything I did was absolutely horrible and wrong. And it was a really exhausting time in my life where I was the business development manager, but I was also the bookkeeper, the janitor, the admin guy and the guy that knocks on the door to say, hey, you owe me $200 a month for rent, that was what Birmingham was in '08. It was an interesting place. But I've done all of those roles, and there's some of them that I'm way better at than others. And I think, much like you and I have had this conversation, I think through all of our incredible friends that we've made throughout this industry, it's very clear that each one of them brings their own special superpower to the game of property management. I think it's interesting that we see so many of our friends that have an incredible superpower in leasing, or an incredible superpower in maintenance, or in bookkeeping, or in acquisitions, how they try and spread themselves so thin. I'm really good at leasing, but I better also be the best bookkeeper that we have in our company.
Yeah, I've recently written a few vibe emails about that, actually, like staying in the 80% zone of genius for yourself. I have this conversation with clients all the time. Of course, you can do everything, but should you be doing all the things? The answer is no. And what should you be doing? So that's how I work with my clients. We break that down, and then we look at their team, who's helping, who's hurting, and what roles do you really need. So how did you guys do 350 doors a year organically with no CRM? Were you working an insane amount of hours? It's a pretty heavy investor area too, right? Birmingham, Alabama.
There's no substitute for being in a great market.
For sure.
I was just in a meeting with some property managers discussing market understanding. There's no substitute for a good market, but every market is good if you understand it. I became the Birmingham, Alabama market expert, or at least that's what all of my clients thought. Do I believe there are people that understand Birmingham, Alabama better than me? Of course. I would never assume that I am the foremost expert in anything. But realistically, I lived in a market that supplied investors with cash flow. And that's not something that every market can say. Alabama has the second lowest property taxes in the United States, only behind Hawaii, which has the most expensive land that you could ever purchase. So the fact that it had the second lowest taxes, the 13th highest appreciation, and the 48th lowest entry to purchase made what my market was. And originally Birmingham, I did the market information and analysis for all of the 4 major markets in Alabama, which we're not a big state. There's 5 million people in Alabama. But between Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Mobile, a lot of that math is about the same. It just takes a lot of deep dive research. Here are what the neighborhoods are that represent A, B, and C class markets. And here's where the D class markets are, and how to make those investments the best version of those investments. It took me a lot of time and research to understand the market, and to grow 350 doors a year. It became expressing to the real estate agents in my market that I understood this market better than they did. That wasn't me just calling them and saying, hey, I'm better at this than you.
Well, I don't know. I might do that to some, but
I took a lot of time to go and give to the Keller Williamses, the Remaxes, the Century 21s in my area. Wherever there was a real estate office selling a decent amount of homes per year, I made it my goal to be their default guy that could explain investments in the area, but also their property management guy. I made a point to talk to those brokers and explain to those brokers what I knew. And then I built courses to teach the agents in those offices how to manage properties better. And I'll tell you this, most real estate agents, when they hear what it takes to run a property management company, most of them throw their hands up and say, no, thank you. Can you just do it?
So what I've heard so far is you became an expert, and hopefully you declared that. I learned early on in my career to declare myself an expert. I do on my social media, because if you're just a few steps ahead of everybody else, you are an expert. And the more that you call yourself and have that mindset, then you are an expert. and then you'll even learn more, right? Because more people gravitate to you. So I heard that you basically shared massive information for free, not only your time, but also collateral to real estate agents. But that also made their lives much easier, right? Because when you are selling homes, both you and I have sold homes, you're busy and working with a buyer who's maybe an investor. They want to know answers right away. You may not have them, but if you surround yourself with experts, you're going to retain them as a client and help them out even better. So basically, I think I heard when you're talking about that, you were not sitting behind a desk waiting for calls to come to you, because that is a huge disconnect. I see that a lot. Like, oh, I hired this BDM.
They sit in the office all day.
Right. And they're like, oh, we're not getting any leads. Okay, we work in sales for years. Very rarely do leads just come to you.
Give you all the money in the world.
Right? Yeah.
Sure, I give you all my money. That doesn't happen. It's very exciting when you get that inbound lead that says, I've heard good things about you already. If they've found you and found your number, that happened somehow other than a quick Google search. Then, hey, I learned all these things about you and I'm interested in talking with you. To get anybody to talk on the phone nowadays that's a potential client, but having them be interested in talking to you and then being interested in handing over the biggest investment that they've probably ever made in their life, to have you run it. It's a business that they own. They own the rental property, but they're happy to say, hey, I own this business. Stacy, will you run it for me? I hear that you're good. What are those odds? They're really low. And I was never particularly convinced that I could wait around for that to happen. I mean, I have 4 kids, Stacy. I was a dad really young, which is why I got into property management. I had kids to feed. So I was never able to wait around for business to succeed. I had to get up off my backside and make things happen. And that's what I did as a BDM. There are some people that know our business exists and is good. And I don't have to work as hard to make those convert. So those are my gimmies. It's good to have gimmies because not everything that I'm going to say is going to work. Not everything that I do is going to turn out great. I'm going to spend an exorbitant amount of time with an investor that tells me they're going to bring me 25 doors. And that's going to mean I'm going to slack off with some of those other people that might be 1 or 2 doors, because that's just how the nature of time works. I had a really good feeling. I had a team that I knew was going to produce me 4 or 5 doors a month without me having to like really, beg and bleed for them, which let me then go out and bleed for this other production, which was getting out into my market. I walked my market a lot. I was in the D-class transitioning markets. I spent a lot of my time with the investors. I spent it with the sellers. I spent it with the wholesalers. I spent it with the real estate agents, going and showing them, hey, for this quarter's presentation, instead of doing it in your office and going over security deposits again, it's a great presentation. If you're doing nothing else as a property manager looking for referrals, go to your local real estate agent offices and explain how security deposits work. You will get business from that. It is a cheat code that everybody should do because that's the regulated portion.
Especially on the West Coast.
Worked in Alabama. It worked in Alabama. It is the closest thing to a cheat code that I could give anybody. But getting out there into those markets with those real estate agents and saying, this is what a $1,000 a month rental has to look like. So if you're bringing in a buyer to this area and you're going to tell them, hey, buy this property for $85,000, you'll rent it for $1,000. I need you to understand, you've got to make it look like this for it to be worth $1,000. And let's go look at one that's at $85,000 to buy. Do you see how it's not the same as, like, really putting a picture in their mind and being that market expert did a whole lot of heavy lifting for me. It did a ton because you don't have to shorthand it into, here's my 10 years worth of spreadsheets to show you that I know what I'm talking about. We can just walk out there and look at it. What I'm saying, and I think what hopefully a lot of people are hearing, is all of these ways that grow really well take a lot of time and focus. I didn't accidentally become a market expert.
Right.
I took my market, subdivided it into a ton of little micro markets. And if Joe Levio ever watches this, he'll be screaming Polygon at the screen because he heard me talk about this little micro market Polygon that represents these 27 blocks of houses that represent these numbers on this spreadsheet. I had about a decade's worth of sales history and rental history for each one of these little micro markets that I created. If somebody threw me an address in, let's use the zip code 35206, because that represents an area called Eastlake in Birmingham. It's a small neighborhood of Birmingham, and it's divided into 4 sections as well. If you mentioned that you were looking at buying a property in that zip code, I could tell you from like just a memory where in the street, which part of that market that's going to look like. I can tell you about what year that the houses were built. I can tell you what the rent is going to be right now, what you can buy it for, what you can sell it for later, how much work it's going to take to get it back into the kind of shape that it will take. It took a lot of time in that market to do that. I really benefited from being a part of a team that was pre-built when I stepped into that.
That's awesome. Did you have an admin helper when you were doing that, or you were signing every contract? You were making sure everything was good to go and all that? Because that's a lot too. If I was building again, that's one piece I would for sure add on. Your true BDM should be out there doing what you're doing, becoming that true expert. Like literally can drive down a street and say, oh yeah, that house would rent for $25.95, or I know that would sell for $650, or whatever it is. I can still do that. I know builders. I can be like, oh, that's a so-and-so build.
That impress people every time they're with you and you drive down the street and just start dissecting a market. That takes expertise.
It does. I'm usually with my kids, so I will say they're probably not really.
My kids are way less impressed with me than clients.
But yeah, it is kind of that funny meme of I sold that house, right? You know, I rented that house, or even
20 years ago, kids, I sold that house right there for $37,000. And right now it's worth $386, and it's renting for $18.95. Isn't that crazy?
I even did it this last weekend. Oh, Friday, Eric and I were driving through Arlington. I was like, oh yeah, we could stop and have lunch here. I used to have coffee over there. That's the Starbucks parking lot where I used to accept people's rent money. When I was running a virtual office, I looked like a drug dealer. So I did stop doing it. I used to manage a large townhome complex down the road. So yeah, I still do that. You do have to be that market expert, right? And then I love how you really went above and beyond and went to offices and created short courses and all that. So if you were to give someone like a hack, like a cheat hack, if they're trying to grow their property management company, and I don't know, are you hearing client leads down right now? Like the inbound, are they down? Or is it
I'll say this. I've been paying attention to this for 20 years. Everybody always says inbound leads are down. My inbound leads are down this month. In 20 years, I've never heard of a month where somebody said, I've got more inbound leads than ever before.
Right.
That doesn't happen. If you're relying on inbound leads, I'm sure they're down. I've never relied on inbound leads. It was never a huge concern to me. I believe in every market, especially right now. Right now is the time to really get out there and pound the pavement, because the economy is doing some kooky things. And there are people with less money and less buying power now than they have in a long time. But that means that there are people out there that do have the money that are capable of buying some really good investments right now. The market's a little bit soft. This is the time when the market gets soft. This is the time you could really grow your property management company. The houses are sitting on the market for 3 months. Right. Great. Go grow. Go build. This is the time to do that. Every quarter, I had one presentation I worked on. And this one presentation per quarter was going to go to 5 to 10 brokerage offices, and I'd map them out. It took years to develop this, work through. I'm going to go to this Keller Williams office, this Century 21, this Remax, whatever. And I built in just my conversations with those brokers. Hey, I would love to come to your office, bring you guys some donuts. I would love to be your property management referral company. But also, I've got a really good course that I think your agents might be interested in on what to do with security deposits. That was usually the first one that I did. And I'm telling you, that one's a cheat code. It's the most cheat code, because if you do security deposits right, it's a hassle. You have to have a trust account. You have to really
Oh, the landlord tenant law.
Absolutely. These real estate agents all need to hire APM Help to run their trust accounting, because trust accounting is the regulated portion. If you're doing that wrong, that's the only place where your business can get really in trouble. And brokers know that.
Oh, yeah.
Brokers know that.
That's why some of them won't even touch property management.
So very rarely would a broker tell me, oh, please don't come teach my people how to do that. They're like, do you know how to do that? Can you please come teach my agents how to do that? Because every agent has one or two. Every one of those agents had one or two that they were doing probably wrong. And I was a great source to come and teach them how to run their security deposits. Yep. It's still a thing that I talk about, because at APM Help, there's still people not doing security deposits. It's very important to do that. I would teach that course, and that was my Jonathan Edwards fire and brimstone. Hey, it's come to Jesus time. Let's talk about, are you doing security deposits right? And I would finish that class. I would teach it for 15 minutes tops. It's not long, but I'd bring my donuts or my bagels or my coffee. It'd be the good, hey, I would love your referrals. I would sit in the back of the class as they were going over their sales numbers, and they were going over, whatever spotlight that they were doing for the entire rest of that meeting. And afterwards, every class that I did that, at every office I did that, at least one person would come up to me and say, hey, look, I know that I'm doing one wrong. I really should have no business managing this property on my own. I'm not even really good friends with the guy that I'm managing this for. It's more of a pain in my backside than it's worth, especially if that's what I'm up against, doing that wrong. Can you just manage this property for me? Absolutely. That's why I was there. But several times, maybe not every meeting, but several times that would become, hey, there's 6 people that want me to do that. Hey, there's a dozen people that are doing this wrong. Hey, maybe that one person in the audience is like, I've got 10 properties and I know that I'm doing this bad. And I've gotten to the size where I can't even sell properties anymore, because all day and all night, I've got these tenants calling me. Those were great things for me to hear. That was my inbound lead right there in the moment. Yeah. And I would come back and teach a different thing, and not about security deposits, but I would teach them how to do a market analysis for a rental property. Something that they probably didn't know how to do. I would go back and teach, what is the average days on market time frame? What is the rent amount here? Let's look at the difference between $2,500 for rent versus $2,200 for rent, and why I know that doesn't seem that big of a deal, but if you're off, this is your change, and really teach them about what was going on in the market. Yep. And at the end of that class, the same kind of stuff would happen. Man, you really are way better at this than I would be. Can you take over these properties? I designed 4 courses that were essentially a version of that any property management company would look and go like, you're not really teaching me anything. We know how to do all that. Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys do. Every person watching this probably can go and teach 4 classes a year. About something that real estate agents don't know.
And so for those listening out there, make a list of the things that irritate you when you get a new property from a realtor who just sold it to a new investor who has no idea what they're doing, and all the things that they promised them would happen, right? So rental rates, security deposit, what is actually rent ready. So just make a list of all the things that's irritated you over the last couple of years, because we all have those. I remember one of my most favorite, I mean with sarcasm, is we got a new client. They called us, hey, we want to have you manage. We just had this realtor help us buy this house. It was in an HOA, single family home. The HOA had a rental cap, and they had no idea. Nobody knew, supposedly. The realtor didn't think about that. Of course. Whatever. Long story short, they were able to appeal to the HOA. We were able to get it rented for them. But when it came up vacant, they had to sit vacant for a few months. I think it was half a year, because it was just the way that the HOA had their rules and the rental cap was full. Think about what a horrible thing, right? Even a simple little 10, 15-minute course, simple little slides. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Take your information, put it on a QR code so people can scan it, stay behind and get their information, be available. I think being available is
being available
thing. Yeah. I'll tell you one of my cheat codes. So when I first opened Leading Edge, I was not just property management. I had real estate as well, because I used my real estate commissions to fund my property management so I could invest in prop tech and invest in my company. That was my personal cheat code to grow my business. I wasn't really like a retail agent. It was just kind of like, and I had one agent that did some work for me. But with that, because this is one excuse I hear all the time is, oh, we also do sales, so we're never going to get referrals. Well, I will tell you that is not true. So what I did was I created a realtor happy hour. Super simple. I went to one of our local restaurants that had a room out of the restaurant area. And I said, hey, I want to have a little party. They didn't charge me anything for the room fee. I just had to buy some appetizers. And then I put out invites to all the realtors because realtors love happy hour. Those that drink, you can even come and have diet soda, whatever. And I put it out to all the realtor friends in my market and said, hey, come by, enjoy a glass of wine or a beverage on me. And I'm going to have some light appetizers, get to know me and my team and Leading Edge and how we can help serve you in the community. So instead of going office to office, I invited them all to a restaurant. At that time I was virtual. I did not have an actual office for myself. And it was a great success. I was able to build some really good relationships. They got to know me and know Stacey's legit. She's not going to try and steal my client. If I send her one, she's going to send them back when they want to sell or whatever the case may be. I got business for years off that simple little happy hour. And it was maybe $200, if that. I mean, it was not very expensive. Think about that, like how easy that would be. And especially if you have a BDM, they could be doing those quarterly.
That's what your BDM should be doing. Certainly not sitting in an office waiting for inbound leads.
No, definitely not.
These numbers are apocryphal. I'm not certain where I remember these numbers from. The point is not about the number. It's about the general thought process here. Referrals close around 85%. A cold lead is less than 1%, but a regular inbound lead has about a 15% close ratio. Now, those numbers are crazy. Outbound cold call leads close at less than 1% because there's a whole series of numbers that have to happen before any of those work for you. You got to make hundreds of calls a day to do that. An inbound lead closes at 15%. Why is that the case? Well, because if they're calling around at property management companies, they're probably calling all of them. They're probably at least have a list of 5 or 6 of them that they're trying to test the waters. And then in that case, you're exclusively competing on price point. You can say you're not all you want, but when I call you and I say, hey, what makes you a good property manager? If the things that you tell me are, we lease our properties really well, we have good screening, we do maintenance 24 hours a day, and we have software. Right. You've told me nothing about that is unique. You've told me that you are the exact same as every one of your competitors. And therefore, me as an investor in that case, the only thing that you could possibly be competing with me on is price.
100%.
So 15%, right? But now let's talk about what that referral lead looks like. If you are a single family owner, you're moving out. Let's say you're downsizing, you buy a new house, and your real estate agent that's helping you either sell or buy your new house is probably somebody that, raise your hand if you don't know a realtor. There's nobody raising their hand because there are realtors everywhere. Yes, so most people have a good friend that's a realtor. The people in my family, when they buy houses, do you think they call me? Absolutely not. They do call me and I say, call someone else. It's not me. I'm not your guy that's going to help you buy or sell a house. I'll manage it all. But the person who is their real estate agent is probably a good friend, probably somebody that they go to church with or family with or known in Rotary Club. They're good friends. That art of building that relationship already exists. That's the biggest problem with taking a lead, a cold call. That's why cold calling is so hard, because you have to build a relationship with people and gain their trust and then ask them to hand over their most expensive investment. You're really looking at a way steeper climb than most people are capable of. That doesn't mean there aren't people that can sell ice to people in the north. There are good salespeople. I get that. You can manipulate. I'm talking about going in a completely different direction. Those real estate agents already have that relationship built. When their friend that's a real estate agent looks at him and goes, actually, Stacey, instead of me selling your property that you're trying to get rid of, I'm telling you, the market's really soft right now. It's not going to sell for what you want to get out of it. Can I introduce you to my friend Jonathan? He's a property manager.
Mhm.
Now, I know that renting is something that you don't want to have to deal with because that seems really difficult, and it is, which is why you need a property manager. My friend Jonathan can handle that for you, and then when the market gets really good again, we can sell it. He's the kind of guy that's going to treat you right and take really good care of this property, because every time he's ever referred a client back to me to sell, the house was in as good a condition as it was when we wanted to sell it the first time. Maybe it's even in better condition. This guy is my guy. And now when you call that property manager, or when that lead calls you and says, Jonathan, my real estate agent has told me everything in the world about you and how wonderful you are. I need you to rent my property. It's 123 Oak Street. There is no sales that needs to happen at that point. It's just setting the expectations. I always did my sales to the real estate agents. I was never trying to sell a client.
Interesting.
If you called me to say, hey, my real estate agent told me that you were the property manager in the area, it was an onboarding call at that point. I was not selling you. I was walking you through what the steps were to getting this done. Yeah, okay, so what day do you close on the property? Once you get it closed, has your real estate agent already shown you the cash flow worksheet that I made for him? Yes, he has, and he's gone over those numbers with me. Fabulous. I don't have to do that now. I'm going to go ahead and take over your property. If they were buying it, I'd taught the real estate agent how to do a pro forma. If they were selling it, and if they couldn't sell it and it was going to sell on the market, I was the guy that was going to take really good care of it for them and show them how I'm going to send them my Z inspector or my rent check condition reports or whatever. It wasn't about selling at that point. It was an onboarding conversation. Those just close. Those are just easy. So to me, I would always rather deal with a lot of people that are going to call me, and every time I answer that phone, there was a 85% chance that it was going to be closed new business for me. Is that inbound leads? No, that's not. I spent my time and effort exclusively focused on developing that network to where I didn't have to worry about what our marketing presentation looked like or our website. Those things were important, surely, but I wasn't in charge of those things. Hey, our bookkeeping needed to happen, right? Somebody had to make sure that those security deposits were handled really well. Somebody had to make sure that owner payments went out at the right time of the year. Somebody had to worry about 1099s, especially right now, get those ready to go.
Yes.
But I didn't have to.
Right. Well, your role was biz dev, and that is really important for a company that wants to grow. However, I will say there's different ways to grow. So I think it's important for all the different pillars. You talked about your referrals. You have to have all the different pillars set up. Make sure your Google reviews are good. Have a good website. Have a lead magnet on the website. And then also differentiate yourself in the market for the love. Like, there's so many things I do different.
Can you talk about lead magnets and differentiating yourselves? Because I think that's something that people talk a lot about, but I'm not sure if everybody always knows what I'm saying when I say that.
Yeah, I don't think that we talk about lead magnets in property management. It wasn't until I jumped into founding this new business that I really feel like I've learned way more about marketing. I don't really like the word sales. I call it relationship and offering. These are the offers that I have in order to help transform you and your business. That's how I look at it. I'm not a pitch, but the marketing piece of it, oh my goodness. If I knew then what I know now at Toledo, I would have dominated my market. There's blue ocean in property management to have a lead magnet. A lead magnet could be really anything, like a PDF download of the top 3 ways to get your property rent ready or anything informational. And then if you have your salesperson, your biz dev, include a little video at the end with then a calendar link, schedule a call. Just, hey, a discovery call. Let's talk about what you've got going on.
Direct call to action after you've given them something
Your CTA.
of value.
Yep, exactly. And I don't see those on any websites that I've looked at. There's the form, like a lot of them have
Fill in your form
us,
and we'll send you a
but
thing.
what is that? Like, how is that making you feel? So like if, again, knowing what I do now, I always say, put yourself in the consumer shoes. So if I, Stacy, was like going on Jonathan's website and I'm like, oh, my house is worth $500K. I've got to rent it because I need to move across the country. I don't want to sell it because my interest rate's like 2.5%. I log on and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I can just send in this contact form, but then there's nothing. Like, Imagine how much better you could build that relationship. And the other thing too is, so if they're cold, like, again, I don't know you, but I land on your website and I click a link and it's this really cool information, like top 3 tips for whatever. And then Jonathan's video comes on, it's 2-3 minutes long, talks about whatever. And then there's a calendar link right at the end. I'm like, oh, how easy is that? Cool. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. So I'm going to click on that link and schedule a call. That would be an amazing, super easy, virtually free way to bring on new people.
I know it's been a while since I've been a BDM, so I don't know which of these companies are still doing this, but there are several versions of investment calculators that were very easy to just plug in on your website, like as a HTML, just like a plugin that an investor could go and say, hey, this is my property. What will it rent for? Those are really useful because if I am planning my move to a different part of the country and I do have a 2.5% interest rate and I'm not interested in selling my home, I need to find some calculator to give me an idea of what I'm looking into. This is a great place to put all of your friends' plugs for their moving businesses.
Yeah, here's my moving swipe file. And then literally it could be a Google Doc. With links.
And there are people that will argue with me here, I'm sure. Deb Newell will argue with me here, but I do give away things for free.
Okay.
I've always enjoyed doing that. I give away information for free. I was always happy to give away information. Most people that are consumers of ours, most property management clients really don't know what the numbers mean. And it's not to talk about how our clientele is dumb. They're not. They very much aren't dumb. They're just not specialized in our industry. And so, yeah, you and I can talk about what an 8% cap rate means all day. That informs me of a lot of information when you say, oh, we bought this property at an 8% cap rate, and this is what we were planning for our cash on cash. We can dive into jargon all day long, and we'll follow it. Our clients probably won't, and that's okay. I always give those real estate agents all that free information. It was free, happy to give it away for free because most of them wouldn't know what to do with it. You can have the information all day long if you don't know how to.
Right. I think that's the same, like, I've spoken, NARPM or conferences, but since going back to 2018. And sure, I've given away a lot of free information, but at the same time, there's no way somebody can listen to you talk for 30 or 45 or even 60 minutes and then go in and replicate your business. There is zero way, none. And 2, I love providing value. I give away lots of free information. I have 10 different freebies, lead magnets, whatever you want to call them, floating around the internet. I even created a custom GPT for the Florida State Conference.
That was incredible.
It's free. Want the link? I've got it. You can use it all you want. Have your team use it. At the end of the day, my philosophy is let's make the industry better. Even if I give you some of my free stuff, it doesn't mean that you're going to still know everything. And you can find a lot of information everywhere, but when you work with somebody, that's when you can dive in and transform yourself and your business. I'm sure you guys give out free information. Well, you guys are doing a 1099 webinar, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. December 3rd.
December 3rd, we are doing a free webinar for 1099 prep. 1099 seems so, and for anybody that's listening that hasn't been in the bookkeeping portion of their company, the 1099 squeeze is now. It is. Get ready for it today, because if you wait until January, you're not getting ready for it.
It's one of the processes Stacy really disliked.
Yeah, it's one that a lot of people dislike.
It's not a sexy thing, but it's necessary.
Very time consuming. There are so many pieces of this business, like key management. It's a time consuming part of your business. 1099s, time consuming part of your business. I love to give away the free stuff like check-ins. 1099 is an easy thing that I can walk you through. Hey, did you get all these pieces ready? Are you prepared to file? Do you have your TCC? Did your TCC graduate this year? You've never even heard of a TCC? Okay, cool. Calm down. You might not need one. Are you on Buildium perhaps? Buildium provides your TCC.
Yep.
And if you don't know these things, it seems scary, which is why we put on an hour-long free 1099 prep course every year. And why we send out a 40-page booklet, again, free from our website. Here's the things.
Right.
Because, we want to provide that free for everybody. But we also know that if you aren't prepared, we will give you every single step from step 1 to step 4 trillion.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. We're happy to do it for you. We're always happy to teach people how to use the softwares that we specialize in. We made a course for YouTube about Appfolio. We created a really easy how-to Appfolio course, from a bookkeeper's perspective. Here's where all these reports are. Here's where all these buttons are. We're doing the same thing for Buildium. We'll get one done for Rentvine. We'll get one done for Propertyware. And it's not that we're saying you have to pay for these courses to learn these things. And we're not teaching somebody the most intricate stuff. We're proficient. We have the tools. We have the team. Right. We have the time to do this. If your time as a property manager is spent running your bookkeeping software, then you're probably not doing a lot of other stuff. You're probably not going out to 6 different brokerages every quarter and giving a presentation. You're probably not talking to 100 realtors a month. You're probably not getting out there and doing your happy hour, because what time do you have to do that if you're your bookkeeper?
Well, it goes to the zone of genius. And even as a business owner, probably shouldn't be the biz dev person, once you grow. I know, like, once I hit a certain threshold, I had somebody else take that over for me because I didn't have time to do it. I always would think like, oh, I have time. And then I really didn't. My zone of genius was creating my business, growing it, looking ahead, being the visionary. We didn't get a huge chance to talk about this, but there is a different way to grow as well. And that's
I really want to get to this. I'll shut up. I would love to hear.
No, that's okay. Well, you and I could talk for hours, but
we really could. We're good friends.
I know, probably.
I spend a lot of time with you this year at conferences, and I was like, I've always seen you from, in the audience to the stage, or at the same tables, but on one end that was further away from me. But you and I got to spend a lot of time together this year having deep conversations. I'm so impressed with the ability to get out there and do acquisitions. I don't think people understand how much work is involved in that. It's the same kind of thing that business development runs into, which is you can't do it part-time. Can you speak on that a little bit?
So I basically say it's like biz dev on steroids, and I will say I'm a believer in having both divisions, right? You should still have your biz dev division. You should make sure your operations are in order and that you do have somebody on your team, whether it's yourself or somebody else, that has that visionary mindset for growth. Because if you're managing 200 doors and you want to go buy a firm or a book of business that's 300 doors and you think dumping 300 on top of 200 will be fine, it will not be fine. So you got to make sure that you're looking at that as well. And then you still have your biz dev side. But yeah, the acquisitions, it's basically just kind of like on steroids, but you do have to treat it like a job.
Are there rules? So like the example that you just gave, a 200 unit company, going and buying a 300 unit company on top of it. What it takes to run a 200 unit company and what it takes to run a 300 unit company are different. But going from 200 to 500, what does the prep for that even look like? I can't even comprehend the lead up time frame that takes. That's not just, hey, I found a good deal, I bought it. That's not how that works.
Yeah. So I had about 175 and I bought 350 plus. I went overnight. However, with doing an acquisition, there is a little bit more lead time. I would say probably like 90 days or so. That's usually the roadmap term I use. I'm doing a free online boot camp as well. So December 4th or 5th, same information. It'll be live. I'm talking about the 90-day roadmap from start to close. Once you know for sure that you're going to move forward, that does give you more lead time to then, maybe hire a couple new like RTMs or make sure that you have everything in order. But it does take a lot of planning. So you've got the acquisition piece of it over here that you're doing and you're following all the steps. And there's the messy middle, as I like to call it. A lot of people are really focused on finding them, which obviously that is a thing. And then they're really focused on the value. Like, oh, am I getting a good deal? Like that is like You see that all over the internet.
That's the only reason I know what EBITDA is.
Right, exactly. And then closing. That's like, oh, now I have it. But people forget the messy middle of the acquisitions piece. You've got to make sure that what you're buying is good. What do the contracts look like? Did you put a clawback in place? What is the seller going to be doing? Are they still going to have a key to your office? There's a lot of things. It all comes full circle. There's a lot of things that happen that people just don't think about.
Like, what if they're on a different software than you are?
Oh, yeah. Well, and then you have to decide too, how are you going to run it for the first few months? And how are you going to transition everybody in? The one that I bought, they were on a non-cloud based software. They were still using pen and paper for client ledgers every month. This is in 2020.
No.
This was the start of COVID. So it wasn't like your Excel days in 2009.
Which was excusable in those days.
But what I chose to do was run them as side by side. I had hired an assistant PM just for the boomer business and trained her to run that while then training her on the leading edge way. I had a leading edge team and I had a very strategic plan that I would say worked pretty well. It took a lot of pre-thinking ahead of time. If I'm going to run this and then be strategic about this, do I have the software set up in leading edge so that I can start bringing them over? You know, how do I do that with tenants moving out on the old company into the new one? I mean, there was a lot of moving parts that if you weren't like pre-planning it, it could have been a huge disaster for sure. That's what I'm really excited to teach people about, is that acquisitions is a very sexy topic. I'm sorry, 1099s are not.
No, that's absolutely true.
People are like, ooh, I want to talk about buying a company.
Yes, you should go and listen to Stacy talk about that because it is going to be a lot sexier than my 1099 conversation.
Yeah. But the good thing is
to listen to my 1099 conversation.
Yeah, you can go to 1099 on December 3rd and then
it's a nice webinar to nap through. This conversation is so important. I am not a bookkeeper. Even when I had to be my own bookkeeper, I was bad at it. And the idea is recognizing this 80-20 is where is your superpower at?
Yep.
Like, how do you want to spend your days? I love spending my days doing business development or networking. I hated selling. I don't like to sell. I never wanted to sell houses ever again.
It's a relationship. So you and I talked about the same. It's building relationships and then having an offering. And your webinar, 99% of people are going to listen to that. If they don't already know that, you're going to know after that 45 minutes. Yeah, that is not something I even want to be in charge of. But then APM Help has a great solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm going to have a boot camp. I'm going to give you the 90-day roadmap. I mean, I'll tell you the 90-day roadmap. But when it comes down to it, after that, you're like, oh, wow, that is way more than I knew.
It's so good to have an expert in your corner.
Right.
That's what I come to the table. And if you're too busy to grow, this is my thesis. If you're doing everything by yourself, you are too busy to grow. You shouldn't expect yourself to be great at everything. If you want to do acquisitions, because that is sexy and fun, you definitely can go full force into it, but you've got to find somebody that can teach you to do that well. Hey, look, does everybody know my friend Stacy? She's amazing at it. Take this 90-day course and learn how to do this from an expert that's done this 100 times. That's important. Yeah. Doing this on your own is a lesson in how to fail. To be perfectly honest, there are so many things that I know about property management because I failed at it. But if you're trying to build your business and grow, it's way easier to take an already expert's opinion and say, okay, I don't have to go through the years of research by doing it that you did. Can you just show me how to do this better?
Well, and there's a difference between failing at maybe, like, oh, $100 or, oh, I had to pay that client I had to write a check for $200 because we messed up versus making a $200,000 error, right? Or buying a property management company and then all of a sudden you didn't have a clawback and you lost 50 doors and you still have to pay the seller for those doors. So big difference in failure, right? And same with 1099s. So you kind of have to look at what's your threshold for failure. Yeah. But I had so much fun today.
Stacy, I can hang out and talk with you all day.
I know. So when you see Jonathan and I at conferences together, he's usually drinking his fine whiskey. I'm usually drinking my Coke Zero or Diet Coke if they don't have Coke Zero. Come say hi. We would love to meet you in person if we haven't yet and chat more about all the cool things. Here, I have my QR code so you can join my free boot camp. That is December 4th and 5th. Do you have the link to your 1099?
Get my link. Did she send it to me? Yes.
Okay,
I've got a link for stress-free 1099 prep.
good.
Throw it right here in the chat.
Yes,
Look at that. If you go to APM Help's website, we kind of have it plastered everywhere because tis the season for 1099s. As
I know.
So just visit apmhelp.com and you'll be like tunneled towards it. If you need 1099 help, we are here to help you along with all of your bookkeeping needs. As long as you're in Appfolio, Buildium, Propertyware, or Rentvine, we guarantee trust compliance.
That's sweet. Well, those are the 4 major ones.
I'm working with APM Help to see if we can't partner up with DoorLoop as well and start providing some services for them. But we're not quite there yet.
Well, we all have goals for 26. So, okay, cool. Well, thank you so much again. And thank you for everybody for watching. And we'll see you again soon. Have a great day.